So guys, as we talked about in the intro, there are 5 scary moments I'm going to cover throughout this course where something might go wrong with the baby, the pregnancy, with your situation. So in these 5 scary moments, I just want to take a few minutes to sit down and be a little bit more serious, and kind of just walk you through what the situation is, why it's scary, what might happen, and how you can sort of pivot if some one of these things does happen to you. So right away, we're going to get into our first scary moment, and that's the concept of miscarriage. So those of you who aren't familiar with it, miscarriage is basically when the pregnancy just self-terminates. Usually it happens very early in the pregnancy, and some people don't even know they're pregnant when the miscarriage happens. It's most common in weeks 6 through 8, and the risk of miscarriage goes down substantially after that 12th week of the pregnancy, which is why a lot of people wait until after 12 weeks to have that public announcement to tell everybody that they are pregnant. So I want to get into a few things for you here. Number one, miscarriage is a lot more common than most people realize. It happens to about 15 to 20% of couples will have a miscarriage on one of their pregnancies. And this is a kind of a big number, and it's bigger than we realize because it's such a taboo topic that most people don't talk about it for a lot of different reasons. So what I want you to be aware of is A, this is a possibility, and B, here are some things I want you to do to get ahead of it and see what happens for you if you do have that unfortunate experience. So ways to get ahead of it, I think, are important for you and your partner to consider is, first of all, just to have a sit-down conversation with your partner. Say, hey, babe, I came across this idea of miscarriage. Can we sit down and talk about it when you're ready? And have that conversation. So some of the things you want to consider in that conversation are, do we want to bring more people kind of in our inner circle who know that we're pregnant? Should we tell some really close friends and family members that we're pregnant, we're really excited, but we're waiting to tell everybody else until we kind of get out of this danger zone? One of the pros of that is that if you do have a miscarriage happen, you'll have a support group that's built in that kind of can understand where you were, what happened, and where you're going, and they can be there for mama in particular. The second thing you want to mention in this conversation is just ask her, do you know any friends or family members who've had a miscarriage? And just give her a chance to sort of like share her fears, her concerns, her experience with the idea, especially as it relates to being a helpful friend for one of her friends or family members that might have had this happen to them. And this is where you just want to kind of listen and let her share her experience and her stories with you. Something to keep in mind here is that for a lot of us guys, and I've seen this happen with many of the guys I've worked with, they were in a pregnancy, they had a miscarriage. And for a lot of us guys, we kind of like take this as like an event that happened. We lost a pregnancy. Well, I'm kind of bummed, but it was like I hadn't really got all invested in it. I was excited, but it just sort of like not as huge of a deal as it is for a lot of the women out there that I've had a chance to work with, to hear from. For them, remembering back to big idea number one, this is, she's a mom now, and big idea number 4, that this is the biggest deal in her whole life, bigger than marriage and graduation, everything else. She didn't lose a pregnancy, she lost her baby. So it's a much more impactful and emotional roller coaster for her than it is for a lot of the guys I've talked to. You may see this in friends of yours who've had that happen to them as well. So be mindful that you might have lost a pregnancy, but she lost her baby. So give that space for her to kind of like share what her fears are about a miscarriage, what her concerns might be, how she's worrying about it, or she's concerned, or just generally how much it's taken up of her attention during these early weeks of the pregnancy. So wrapping up where you wanted to get ahead of it, just to wrap up this conversation with her, just encourage her, say you're grateful for all the things that she's doing, that she's taking care of baby, you're so glad that she's your baby's mom. And one time only, and never again, is say, sometimes miscarriage is just nature's way of recognizing things weren't going to work out. So kind of resetting the bar, having a clean slate. But then never say this again. You just want to say this as one time and then move on. Keep the conversation open. If she wants to talk to you about it again, feel free to make time to sit down with her. But again, this is an important thing you want to be thinking about here. Now, wrapping up here, if you have the unfortunate experience of being in a pregnancy that does have a miscarriage, there are a lot of great resources out there for coping, for connecting with your partner. I have a few listed on my website in the resources section, but this is definitely not my expertise, but you want to make sure you're taking advantage of those resources. What some guys have done that doesn't work out is they try to comfort their partner by letting her know that for them, they're not blaming her, they're not upset at her, it's not that big a deal. It's okay, honey, we can try again next month. You really want to get away from this. You want to just let her have her experience of loss because it's going to be very profound for her, and just stay connected to her and say, I know this is really hard. It's hard for me too. We were doing everything we could do. We were taking care of our baby. We were putting our best foot forward. But you don't want to make it sound like, I'm not blaming you. It's okay. We'll try again. You don't want to minimize it because that's how that comes across. So just be that supportive partner for her. Stay connected, stay open, stay invested in her and her experiences, and give her all the time and space she needs to begin trying again. But don't push that at all. Lots of space is much better here. So I just want to wrap up this first scary moment. Again, being really mindful of how concerning this may be for your partner, and not to try to get in there and fix it, but just to hold the space for it. Thank you.